So we all ready? Down in the corner, please.
Gentlemen.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the Bellows Falls Trustees regular meeting and Zoom meeting down in the lower theater. For some of us, it's Tuesday, May 12th, 2020, 6 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Any additions to the agenda for routine administrative matters and or pressing matters that will require ratification at a future meeting?
I don't have any.
Anyone else? And again, Jiggs and Jonathan and Shannon, please speak up. Anyone who's on Zoom, just because the volume is not very loud from the TV. Thank you. Approving the minutes of the regular meeting of April 14th and 2020. I believe all of us have received the amended copy from the clerk. Is that correct?
That's right.
Correct.
Okay, good. All right.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes.
Seconded.
And seconded. Any further discussion on the minutes of April 14th, 2020?
Deb,
Yes.
at the very end, it says that we adjourned. It did not say that we came out of executive session.
Oh, right. That's true. Well, yeah, we went in, we entered at 8:29, but it doesn't say when we ended.
So it would have been right around 9:05.
9:05. I believe that's accurate. We didn't have any action to take. So it would have been like 9:04, 9:05. Yes, that would be the only thing that's not on here. All right, any further discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, it's unanimous. We're all set. Thank you. Thank you for making it.
I'll add that before.
Right, before passing, yeah. All right, public comment on items not on the agenda? Is there anyone? I'll look around the room. Hearing none, manager's report.
Okay, just a couple of things. Town hall is still closed, even though the meeting is here, town hall is still closed to the public. Recreation facilities are opening on a limited basis. People still need to not congregate, but there's information on the website. Folks can go to the the outdoor facilities, as long as they don't do sports where there's physical touching. The rescue truck was delivered this week, so I think that, and folks here can expand on that if they want to.
Yeah, the truck showed up last Thursday, I think, I don't remember. And then we put it in service today, actually.
Oh, good. All right. Well, that's notable. And then the Burt Blake project, was on winter hiatus. It's scheduled to resume again on Monday. They'll start work. So that's all I have. And Chuck will update everyone on the next phase of COVID, which actually is the next agenda item. If you
That's the
want
next
to
agenda.
segue to that.
Okay, Chuck, you're on.
So I'll introduce Sean McGinnis as well. We kind of co-team this. The next phase of COVID sounds sinister, but the big thing is when we're going to open. We don't have it yet have an answer for that. It's something that next week we're going to take up with the staff. I think you all have seen the retail enterprises are being selected for being open. They have, for instance, health and safety training. So before we go to that next step, we have to make sure that we can open safely, follow all the CDC guidelines, and make sure that everybody is in lockstep. So when this building becomes open to the public, however that happens, we're ready for that. So it's kind of a wait and see at this point. Sean, do you have anything to add?
No.
Yeah, actually, people have been great about paying taxes. So thank you to the public. Yeah, I can read
That's
a
terrific.
wave. Thank you.
That's there's always concern, and people are probably, doing their part to support
They are.
municipal governments.
They are. So they're calling us. Some are using credit cards. Some have met staff out on the front. But the public is being very, very flexible with that.
Better than anticipated, that's awesome.
Yeah. So thank you.
All right. Nothing further, okay. We move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the Water Department. Brian Jocelyn, Chief Operator, and Chrissy Gaskins, Engineer, consideration of Pine Street main replacement. Who'd like to start? Right, Chrissy? He's
Well,
take-
yeah, I'll just do a quick intro.
Okay,
Hopefully
so
you all
Mike-
received the information that Chrissy sent,
Yes,
which was a summary of where we are and where we can go. You did approve in January the additional section on Pine Street. Then there was a miscommunication about Williams Terrace. Or George Street rather, the engineer did put that into the drawings, but they are not charging the village for that additional work. There's some good news on the Mill Street project. It's expected to cost less than anticipated, so there is funding. The rates will stay the same. These projects do not result in an increase in rates. It's already built in. And with that, I'll turn it over to Chrissy.
she's muted.
Oh, please unmute Chrissy.
Thank you. Oh, and then she remuted.
She removed, there we go.
Chrissy?
Good evening.
Good evening. Please speak up as much as you can. This television is not great audio.
I will do my best to talk loudly. So Wendy did a pretty good summary there. As she noted, there was a little miscommunication between my project engineer and Brian and the board. And so some extra work on adding in George Street was included in the drawings. And by the time I found out about it, it was already in there. So I figured it doesn't cost any more to permit it that way. So I just left it in there for now. And I figured I'd just let the board decide how to proceed with that one. Williams Terrace does have a broken valve that Brian brought up, and that valve is critical in shutting down the water main for the Pine Street replacement. So without Brian bringing that up, bringing that to our attention, that would have ended up being a change order later because we do need that valve. So the suggestions I had were, if, like I said before, if you permit it all, it doesn't cost any more to permit it. And that way it's all under the permit. And if you want to proceed with it, you can. And we recommend including the Williams Terrace work just because that being critical. And then George Street, I would recommend putting it in the bid documents as an add alternative, which means that you don't have to do it if you don't want to, but you get to make that decision after you get bid prices on it. So we would have a low bidder and we would know what their bid price is, and we'd be able to tell you exactly how much it's going to cost before you make your decision. So we can do that. We can put it in as an add alternative. So that gives you the most flexibility.
Okay. Brian, do you have anything for discusses?
I really think we probably should move ahead since I don't see any bonding in the future. This could be our last go around with getting a project done.
And actually, the revolving loan funds, the water revolving loan funds are the funds that the bond bank is allowing us to delay payments on.
Board discussion by the board members?
I would go ahead with the recommendation that Christie made and hope that that George Street can be done as part of the of if we have funds available.
Does it say on here how much we have? Oh, 590,000, is that correct?
That's estimated, yes.
That's an estimate.
Yeah, 590 is correct, Christy, right? Chrissy?
Yes, what we did was we projected out what we think Mill Street and Birch Street are going to end up at, and based on that, it looks like you're going to have about 590,000 left.
Jonathan, did you want to speak?
I'll pass on discussion right now.
Okay. Gary?
I would agree with
Jim? Golf?
And Stephanie.
Gentlemen concur, if we can get it done, we need the valve, and if we can get into George Street with the interest rate and construction and the payment, I think makes sense to go ahead and move forward with it.
All right, would someone like to make a motion?
Just Stefan, when you talk, if you could talk a little louder.
Thanks, Shannon.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
How are we doing with the fund?
Is that a Shannon question?
Yes.
Yeah. Shannon, did you hear John?
How are we doing with the fund
Yeah, the water fund. Like for cash.
in respect to like
I mean,
collecting?
I assume we still haven't. Have we gotten paid from the other bond?
Chrissy actually can speak to that. Chrissy and I discussed it. So we don't get paid until the job is complete.
Oh, okay.
Actually, on this one, you get paid every single time you submit you get a reimbursement every time you submit a request for one, which can be done monthly. On the sewer side, that funding, you don't get paid until the end.
Okay, so that's why we
Okay.
haven't received payment for the other one.
Wait, then I have a question. When was the last time you billed them? Shannon?
Chrissy and I have been billing them all along. There hasn't been work since the summer or the
Okay,
fall.
We were paid for that work that you billed.
No, because it was sewer.
Not water. Anything further, Jonathan?
No, I'm all set.
And maybe just to add, the payments for utility bills have been coming in too.
Mhm.
In fact, in some cases, people have been paying past due, which is
Oh, awesome.
great.
Okay, so again,
All right, I'll go ahead and make that motion that we approve the project as highlighted in the different group document here, specifically reference the Pine Street project to include the extras of the Williams Terrace and George Street project.
I will second that.
okay, so we have it moved in second.
Can I
To the recommendation?
Can we amend?
Yeah,
Can we amend?
amend to
Can we
what?
amend it so that Williams Terrace is an add-on?
Yeah, my understanding is that is the recommendation, so that is what was motioned.
So that's what the motion is.
Well, that's not what the motion said. That's not what the motion said.
Okay.
It's to include the Williams Terrace.
That's what I said, to include the extras of Williams Terrace and George Street.
Right, but it has to be termed when it goes out to contract that it's an add-on, so
Add-on.
that we're not bound to that.
I don't have any problem amending it and add the words add on in there.
Okay.
And we got a second. And you accept the friendly amendment?
Yes.
Okay, Gary accepts that. My concern is that I believe it was Chrissy saying that the George Street could be done as an add alternative. Does that still fit? In what we just motioned?
That's what I heard too, Deb. It sounds like the Williams Terrace thing really has to be done. But that the George Street would be the add-on.
Right, yeah.
That's what I've said.
So Jonathan, how does that jive with what you just said?
That's fine if we want to. I would like to just have them both be as add alternatives, but
I see. Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
Okay, and Gary, is that okay with you?
Certainly.
Did you get that? No? But it's gonna be recorded, it's being recorded, so you get it there. Okay. All right, is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, it's passed, thank you. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the village meeting and election, so taking place on June 15th and 16th. As we defer them for a month for public safety. leave it to Paul and Kathleen. Paul?
So about a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, we received from the Secretary of State the COVID-19 suggestions as far as elections go for village or special meetings and the primaries as well as general election. And there are a few changes that they suggested. So Kathleen and I got together and talked about in-person voting. So what we first really talked about is we'd like to encourage as many village resident voters to vote absentee as possible. And then by doing that, but by calling the town clerk's office, you'll get a ballot sent to you. Then there will be no contact with the BCA. You don't need to go up to the fire station to vote, and all of that. So as many people as possible, we would really encourage to vote absentee. The second thing that we talked about is moving the election or the polling place from the Masonic Temple up to the Bellows Falls Village Fire Department. And by doing that, what we were proposing is we would allow voters to come in the front door, get checked in. We'd have one person on A to L and checking people in. The booths that you vote in, what we've talked about is limiting, instead of having 4 locations that you can vote, we would tape off 2 of those. Again, trying to maintain the 6 foot apart, and then going out and running it through the machine. The other advantage that we really saw by going to the fire station is using Tuttle Street, where people wouldn't have to get out of their cars. So they could drive right up next to the fire station, tell us who they are, have somebody out there with a full checklist, check their names off, hand them a ballot, have a BCA member outside with a sealed ballot box. We'd have 3 spots that people could park in. So you could handle 3 cars at a time. We figure you get out of the traffic lanes by going up there, because we talked about trying to do the same thing at Masonic Temple, and you're just out there and it's just so much traffic goes by there. So kind of the proposal is encourage as many people as possible to vote absentee. For people that do not want to have, or voters that do not want to have any contact at all with BCA, coming into the building, we would establish an outside possibility for voting. And then for people that want to come through the building, what we're really talking about is really spreading people out. Check in maybe 3 booths only, or 4 booths. Maintain a 6 foot corridor outside. So if all of the spots that you can vote at are full, then we would hold the people up and then allow them in, so that in all reality, you might be looking at most people in the building at any one time might be 12 or 15 people. And then what we would do is direct them to go out the back door. So it's not like at the Masonic Temple where you have the handicap ramp and you have people going up and down and in close contact with each other. So that's kind of our proposal. We've run this, we talked to Secretary of State, or Kathleen did, and Secretary of State said that he advised that we check with the BCA. That's taken place by email, and the 12 members out of the 15 BCA members that responded all were fine with that. So the BCA is the official voting authority. So that's what kind of the proposal would be.
My understanding is the governor is still recommending 10 or fewer people in a place.
Yes.
So I
then,
would recommend that you reduce the numbers, make sure the booth numbers don't count to more than additional staff may 10.
and we've already, yeah, again, talked outside. You know, instead of putting tape down, we'd put cones down and, you know, kind of, you know, line up 6 feet apart so people coming in that want to vote. I think the real good thing is this will be a real good chance to see how this is going to work, because usually village vote is relatively small compared to primaries and then general election. And those are, you know, and again, by that point, what we're really hoping for is that, again, the majority of people vote by absentee ballot. Those will all be fed into the machine, you know, starting the morning of the election and so on.
You're not concerned about the post? I noticed from my perspective, the last 6 to 7 weeks, that the postal service has gotten really slow. And it's in company groups. I get mail at home and at my business, and I'm getting days where nothing's coming in, and then days where a ton of stuff. So, I mean, what's the last day you can mail out an absentee ballot to supply, to make sure that it gets back here in time for the election?
Well, I'm hoping that being village, that it's everybody in the village, you know, and I think that if they get down to, well, tomorrow's the election, they'll be better off to take that ballot and drive it up and put it into the sealed ballot box out along the side of the road that we'll have.
What does happen, and probably has in the past, with absentee ballots that people don't mail until it's too late, get them the next day? Has that ever happened?
Yeah.
What do you do about that?
I just mark stamp on it when I received it
And you can't count them?
That's correct. That's correct.
And you're still opening at 8 o'clock?
Yes, that's what we're,
8 to 7.
8 to 7.
That's my question. I think Gary has his hand up. Gary?
Yeah, so I would want to do an absentee ballot, but I also would want to participate in the meeting the night before voting. So did I hear you say there'll be an easy way to drive by and drop the absentee ballot in a box without going in the fire station?
Yes.
Great.
That's on.
So you're not suggesting people put them in the mail, because you put it in the mailbox here, it goes up to White River and then.
Well, you know, if 3 weeks before the primary or before this election is where town clerk will first start sending ballots out. If you receive that and then the very next day you vote and mail it to us or mail it back to the town clerk, then certainly. But if you're down to the last day, so the election on Tuesday, if you still haven't mailed your ballot by Monday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, my suggestion would be that you bring it up to the fire station and hand it to somebody.
Maybe it should be a week before. We should let people know, probably don't drop it in the mail, because if mail's delayed and it goes all the way up there already, it takes 4 or 5 days. Just encourage people if you're a week. And then village meeting is going on as normal.
How are we doing that? How are you handling the village meeting? You discussed that?
No, we haven't.
We haven't really discussed that at all.
Because you mentioned to me, Kathleen had mentioned considering taping off seats or
Right,
whatever in order to allow a safe distance between people who wish to turn up. And then I suggested also having a Zoom meeting option as well, that people could participate in. But as to how they can speak and how voting works via Zoom, I don't know. I mean, as far as an annual meeting goes, I'm not knowing.
Well, again, depending on what's on the warning, the only article on the warning that may play at all would be to accept the report of the officers. And other than that, the way, at least the warning I saw, your budget, the $20,000 election of trustees and village president is all going to be done the following day. And then you have the one article that is really allows the trustees and village president to borrow money if so needed. And then you have other business. I think it was only six articles or 7 articles.
Total, and then only 3 of them would be talked.
That's correct.
Budget's on Australian bill?
Now
So we're gonna be talking about, yes, at this point. You had something to say?
Yeah, well, we had talked about this. We are expecting the restrictions to be so we really don't know. You know, the restrictions are supposed to be lessened, before mid-June. So we could separate, you know, like, mark off seats, so make sure people are separated. And I did discuss the Zoom option with the attorney, and it would be fine for folks who want to just observe, but they can do that through Fact TV anyway. But in terms of participating, it's pretty much impossible as far as we can tell now, because you can't distinguish between, residents, non-residents.
Right, yeah, that's
It'd be very difficult.
I think Jonathan wanted to speak. Yes, Jonathan?
No, I wanted to talk about the mail-in, and that we're on to a whole other topic at this point.
I'm sorry.
You want to talk about the mailing in?
Oh, the mailing in,
You went to meetings.
the absentee ballots?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So, okay. I completely agree with what Gaetano was saying. Just in reference to mailing in from in town, it actually takes longer for stuff to get delivered in town than it does out of town. And I tested this recently, unfortunately, and it literally took 4 days to get a letter mailed from in town back into town. So if we're thinking about that, then yeah, we need to consider having a cutoff date earlier the previous week if we're expecting those to get here by Tuesday at end of business.
Right, something like please
That's
mail
all.
in before the 8th, in order, otherwise please bring to the public safety building for Tuesday, the 16th. Something like that. I don't know if that's something you can do, but it really, it'll prevent most, some people waiting to the last minute possibly. And for others that they won't get missed and be counted.
I think the big thing, like I say, it's fairly advisory. They should, we should encourage them to mail early.
Deb?
Yes.
I think, I just want to say that I think the proposal that Paul and Kathleen have suggested here with regards to the voting is a good one. And I don't think it requires a vote, does it?
I don't think so.
No, I think this was really more to inform you.
Yeah.
Because with all due respect, it's the town clerk or village clerk and the BCA that really run the election. But we didn't want it to be a surprise to anybody. This is what we've put together as a plan. This is what we're proposing, and just wanted to make sure that everybody was informed of what our proposal is, and with the agreement of the BCA, I think that's the way we're going to do this.
I think having it here in front of Back TV will be an opportunity for more people to get the word out, and it'll pass around on social media in order for more people to listen to that. Let's see. Gary was first, please. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, so Article 6, adopting the annual budget by Australian ballot, is that about this same annual meetings budget that's being voted on the next day? And if yes, what if that's voted no?
Gary, can we get to that? That's B.
So, okay,
hold on,
sorry.
we're not quite done here. Just want to make sure we're done with that. Hang on, this is about A here, talking about the.
It kind of pertains, I'm wondering if there's thoughts about a forum of such, I don't know who can answer this, for the candidates, as we won't be able to meet them on polling day. So folks who are running could get to know, voters could get to know these people as of now, because we're not gonna be able to talk to them that day. Wondering if there's a forum of such in the plans, so.
How would you want it done?
Well, in the past, it's
I
been
don't
done by
know,
nonprofits.
newspaper, I'm wondering if there's anything being considered so we get to know these people, as we won't be able to stand and have a conversation with them that day.
I know Susan Smollier has already talked to me about starting that process.
That's my question.
That would be in the paper, but in the past, we have had forums. Usually one of the nonprofit organizations puts it together. It can clearly be done by Zoom.
They could do a Zoom meeting.
Yep, they could do that. There are 7 trustee candidates. And therefore, that would give those people an opportunity to speak to the public. That was something that we don't typically do. Normally it's done by someone outside.
I understand. I didn't know where to ask a question, and normally I would ask my questions on voting day.
Okay, if we're done with A, we can move on to B, which is what Gary was talking about, which is the, thank you for all the work you've done, by the way.
Madam President, C is actually what Gary's talking about.
Oh, I thought he was talking about it, oh, he's talking, yes, okay, so let's go on to B, which is to consider including the budget approval on the Australian ballot for this year, 2020, since it is something that's been, every article that can be moved via Australian ballot is something Secretary of State has recommended and suggested at this time, even though things might be looser in June, for the safety of everyone, and as an opportunity to experiment with something we continue to talk about every year. We can put the Australian ballot on there. It can be discussed on Monday, but it will actually be voted up or down as an Australian ballot. So I wanted to know what the rest of the trustees think about doing that. I think it's a good idea myself, but I'm a one person. Anyone want to start? Jigs, Jonathan, Gary, Stefan?
Deb, I agree with you. I think it's if we're allowed to do it by Australian ballot this year, I think we should do it. So I think it's a good idea.
It's like our experiment to see how it goes, how many people will vote.
Yes, exactly.
Jonathan, do you have anything?
I'm in agreement with Jigs and you on this. I think it's a good opportunity to test out what we've been talking about for years.
Steph?
Good experiment, let's check it out, see where it goes.
No, I would agree.
Okay, looks like we're all in agreement. Do we need a motion to do that, or we just move on?
I think you're gonna,
If you
Just
adopt the
sign-
yeah,
warning.
it'll be
We gotta have,
done when you adopt the
the
warning.
thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we can move on to C, Gary. And that would be about, just article number 6, which would be to ask the voters, if they would like to adopt the annual budget as Australian ballot. So, Gary.
Yeah, so it actually might have been more B that I was referring to, so
Sorry.
I understood that, well, no, it's sort of both, so I thought that perhaps the changing it to Australian ballot had to be determined by the village meeting and not just by the trustees.
Not this year, because of COVID-19.
Okay, so it's an exception.
It's an exceptional year, right?
Okay, I
And
thought
that-
6 was referring to 4, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and showing how you could do that, but I get it.
And this would be for the upcoming years, right? So the voters could make the determination if they want to do it on a
in the
regular
future,
basis.
yeah, when it's
Annually.
not a COVID.
Exactly. And that is why
Got it, thank you.
Article 4 and 5 would be on Australian ballot. Is that right?
And, yeah,
And 6?
well, Article 1 always is, I guess.
Yeah, Article 1.
And 3, pretty much everything is
Pretty
on
much everything.
Australian ballot except for the acting upon the reports
Yeah.
and the transact other business.
That's true, but they can still discuss it, and that discussion, at the annual meeting would allow for more information or opportunity to decide whether they want these things, yes or no. And perhaps more participation this year in an exceptional year. We will see what more voters than fewer. Don't we usually get somewhere in the range of between 50 and 100 in the annual meeting? And we see if that, and usually there's over 100 or so, maybe 2 or 3%. For voting on the election day, see how those numbers are this year not for, we don't never get covered under, presidential year or any of that stuff. That's all town stuff, but we're the last one on a regular year. Okay, so is there anything else, Gary? All right, did Jonathan or Jigs have anything?
Deb, the item number 6.
No, I'm all.
Article number 6. Because of the difficulty with regards to having the actual meeting, could that one be Australian ballot?
Oh, it should be, Wendy?
Yeah, an early version of this, of the 2 different warnings
is what we have.
Had that not as Australian ballot, but now it is Australian ballot.
Okay.
Okay, Article 6 is,
I think you, Kathleen does.
I don't have a copy that says number 6, shall the Bellows Falls Village adopt its annual budget by Australian ballot?
Okay.
With
I
Australian
don't
ballot.
have that
well-
should go on the.
Well, I do, I have a copy.
And you have it.
Yeah. If that's the one that you choose, because your choice is going to be whether or not to include that Article 6.
Okay.
And now that you've
Right.
decided on everything else.
Okay.
Here's one that says Article 6.
Right,
No,
but
as Article
it may
6,
not
it doesn't
say,
say
By
It doesn't
By
say
Australian ballot.
on the Australian ballot. Parentheses.
So the revised one says by Australian ballot.
No, it
Is that
says
right?
by Australian ballot, but then afterwards it should say parentheses, beginning parentheses, Australian ballot and parentheses, that shows it's going to be on the ballot for the following day instead of voted in the annual meeting. Does that make sense, Karen?
Yes.
Okay,
And yes, Jigs, yes is the answer to your question.
yes, that's the
Okay.
long way around the barn, is yes. Jonathan, do you
Okay,
have
good.
anything? On
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, so do we need to make a motion to do that?
To approve the warning.
To approve the
Yeah.
warning, if we're all done with those items. Yes, so that's D. So now to approve the village warning. I need a motion, please, at least for discussion.
Motion to approve the village warning as presented here tonight.
Second that.
And it's seconded. Any further discussion on the village warning?
Just at the, up at the top, where it says, again, this could have been revised. The last sentence,
All right, it doesn't.
last line, Australian ballot on Article 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
I fixed that.
Say and 6, yeah.
Okay, all
So
right.
that's the copy you have, Wendy?
Correct,
Okay, and we will be signing this tonight,
correct.
right?
But just, can I make just one suggestion?
Yeah.
Just to be super clear, just say that you're approving the warning with the question, shall the Bellows Falls Village Corporation adopt its annual budget by Australian ballot? Because there were two provided in the packet, so I just want it to be clear for the record, that is the version.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so that would be it. So yes, at the top, thank you for pointing that out, James, that the corrected one does say and Article 6. All right, and the motion is to include Article 6 and on the Australian ballot. All right. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'm looking around the room, make sure I don't miss a hand. Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Mr. McCall? Jonathan?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very
Yep. Aye.
much. Thank you. I'm sorry.
We're both saying it at the same time.
Thank you. All right, so we have passed the warning and Wendy has the one we want to sign, and if you can.
Don't wait without signing.
Yeah, let's get it done then. Except of course, Jigs and Jonathan will not be here, are not here to sign.
Well, if you can stop by, we can figure out a way, we can meet you on the sidewalk, if you can sign it before, Friday.
Okay.
Please, that'd be good.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I can take care of that.
Okay.
Give me a second here.
Thanks, Owen.
Gary, thank you. Thank you for your work.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay, now we are moving on to, oops, and I'll give this to Wendy for the warrants. Here, we'll get everything. Article 4, sorry. Number 4 on the agenda, Finance Office, Shannon Berbila, starting with the year-to-date financials. Shannon?
So, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sort of.
Okay. So we are in really good shape. We're still projecting to come in over on revenue and under on expenses. We water and sewer, we did really well and came in over budget for both with revenue. There are 2 items in the general fund I just wanted to bring to your attention. So legal fees for the bill.
Page 3 of 17. Right?
Correct. The general fund legal fees. Those are over and we aren't quite done there. And that's as a result of all of the attorney we've been using in regards to some of the police issues.
Right.
So I didn't know if you guys had any questions about that line.
And I'm assuming there'll be more billing before the end of June.
That's correct. And then we had the investigation, and that also has not been billed yet.
Billed yet. I'd also like to point, on that item, I'd like to point out that on page 6 of 6 of 17, you'll notice how much we spent on legal fees for Atkinson Street. So,
Yeah.
if you're gonna think about the full legal bill,
Right.
that's where we are at the moment. Is there a second item, Shannon?
There is. The only other item I'd like to bring to your attention is the dispatch contract for the police. I think is that on page 7, Jigs?
That's on 7.
On page 7, so our contract is roughly $97,000 a year with dispatch. This line item is over because we are being billed as we don't have a dispatcher currently. We have extended an offer, and we are looking for that person to start on the 18th, but we will also have a half of month of May to be billed to that line item as well. However, we will be short in the dispatch payroll line item as well as the benefit line item for the dispatcher. So although the line item's over, we will be okay overall.
Shannon, can you tell me what rate we are paying on the additional days? Is it an hourly rate, or how does that work? But the hours not covered normally by dispatcher.
Correct. We pay an hourly rate. I don't have the exact rate. I could roughly tell you, but it is comparable to a fully loaded dispatcher with benefits. So we should be perfectly fine as far as how much we spend overall for a dispatcher this year.
Okay, so you don't know the hourly rate. I was only asking that because I could do a head calculation on my own about what would be left. That's all, but thank you.
Deb, I can follow that up and send you guys an email, the trustees an email with that figure.
That's fine, thank you. Okay, Shannon has pointed out 2 areas. Are there other areas that the trustees want to speak about or ask questions on? Looking at Jake's got his head down, so.
Those were the areas that I was interested in.
All right, Jonathan? Do you have anything? Please repeat.
No, I'm all set.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. Stephanie, do you have? Here.
I'm okay so far.
Page 1 of 17, I wanted to know why the call box sales is a negative number.
So I think the chief is right there, but we have sold call boxes online, and we're working to receive the funds for that. This was the amount we paid to ship them all out. So once we receive the funds, we will see the actual dollar value there, which, chief, tell me if I'm wrong, I think it's close to $3,000.
I didn't hear your notes. It's under 3,000, but yeah, so we're tracking on one account, the shipping expense, and then once we receive everything from PayPal.
Okay, I understand, I do get that, but I know that I signed a warrant, including shipping of 3 call boxes that came to somewhere between $70 and $90. So I wondered about that, when this figure's minus 16. To me, it doesn't make sense. Where would you have stuck that postage?
Well, so all of it's running through PayPal currently. So the funds that we've paid, most of them for shipping, as well as all of the revenue, have not hit that fund yet. They haven't hit our bank account. They're just we're working with PayPal.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll go over it later. It's not a big deal, but that's not what I saw on the warrants a few months ago. So I'll figure it out.
And
all right, thank you.
How has that? I have a question, please.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
How has that not hit our? If you're saying we've done this with PayPal and this has been months, that should hit your account in days.
Yeah, it's in our PayPal account. We just need to go retrieve the funds and transfer it to our checking where it'll hit our accounting system. The reason you're seeing the negative amount is the first batch that we sold, we had, I think Sean sold 2 or 3, and we had put the money into the account. So you're seeing there's revenue in that line item and then the shipping also, Deb. So that's why you're not seeing exactly the amount of all of the shipping in there, because there's also revenue.
Okay, so it has to be moved to this account. That's the difference.
Correct.
All right. Jonathan, do you have something else?
I would say I think it's time to, if that money is sitting in there in the PayPal, we should move it over to our bank account and not just have it sitting there.
Sure thing. Sean and I will work on that this week.
Because if it doesn't get moved here, it's not income, according to what we can see. There was something else. Oh, page 3 of 17. Just wondered why the Beamer's account's a negative number.
So they did an account reconciliation with us and they sent us a refund check. I have a call into them to explain exactly why I allocated it the way that it came back as a refund to us. But I think it's from, again, I have a call into them, but I think it's from a prior period.
Okay. I was wondering why our mutual aid tone contract was over on page 5 of 17. It's not a lot, but I thought we have a figure before we plug something in here. So.
I'm not sure if Chief Bemis is there. I think the mutual aid contract reads between a 1% and 3% increase each year.
Right.
And so
we budget it.
I'm sorry.
This is for fire.
Okay. Well, I'm saying, you know, that's the fire. Mutual aid contracts and fire. Just
So
budget for it.
So there's between a 1% and 3% increase each year is how the contract is stated. And so if the previous year was 3% and we budgeted 2%, by the time we did the next year's budget, and that's why it can be slightly be over or under.
Okay. Does anyone have anything else? Doesn't sound like it. Then we would move on to the overtime and comp reports. Does anyone have anything on that? Jakes, Jonathan?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
I'm okay. I think that the trend is good.
Yeah, Chief Bemis is doing a great job managing the overtime.
Stephen, do you have anything? Here.
I guess the 2 officers with the most, that's just shift coverage that needs to be covered and stuff. Okay, nope, I thought maybe that was it, but just wanted to clarify that.
Okay. All right. Moving on to confirmation of final proposed 2021 budget, so you can see after any and all changes that we accepted, because we did make a motion to approve going forward on that budget. And here we are.
Yeah, let me just, a quick little thing, what you didn't have before was this last page, the wastewater totals, which don't make a difference to the total, but that was the missing piece.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we already approved this, but do we have any other comments or questions on this budget?
Deb, didn't we vote it at the last meeting?
We did. We did. This is just after any and all changes that we see what it looks like clean.
Okay.
Right.
It looked the same.
I still have concerns overall about the budget and what we're going to see for funding coming up next year and a half or so, but.
Wendy, did you have something?
No, I was just gonna say, these are the numbers that are in the warning, so if anything changes, we need to change the warning.
No, I know, I'm just making a statement.
Sure, right, sure, no, and not, my comment wasn't in response, I just wanted you to.
And I'm glad that the
Everyone
main
be
tax
aware.
payments, water and wastewater for the previous month were good.
That was a relief.
We'll have, the next quarterly tax payment comes up then.
Everyone just
August?
stimulated, so.
Yes, just
Worry
stimulus,
about
so,
the following one.
right, once we're unstimulated, we'll see what that looks like. Okay, was that it, gentlemen? Anything else on the budget? Yes, and there was a concerns, which might be reflected in the Australian balloting on the budget. Thanks, Lon. Let me see, we move on to the police department update. Let's see, first an overall update. Who's going to present that up? GPS?
I can go with it. We're still on modified operation because of COVID, although we're somewhat less restricted. We are handing out forms. We're doing some VIN verifications that I know some other agencies aren't doing. Currently, we have 5 full-time officers, 5 part-time officers that work for us. We have our overall call numbers since the state of emergency and since we're on modified operation are down. They're down about a third, a little more than a third from last year at this time. And the trend in calls necessarily, we are seeing some more domestic situations, probably. If that's because of the home confinements and such, I'm not sure. But we have been dealing with some of that. We are working on trying to use our part-time officers more to fill the shifts and to work with that. We've had 2 officers that have had to self-quarantine. One of them was earlier, one of them was just recently because of possible exposure, which throws off our schedule and our filling of the shifts altogether. We've developed a number of new protocols and procedures trying to keep the public safe and the officers safe from contracting COVID. I'm not sure what we're going to do when the second wave comes in. Hopefully we've learned from this and we'll modify where it needs to be. We are having issues with PPEs, personal protective equipment. We receive from the state masks and the fire department, we received some suits, and the fire department helped us. We had an incident one day where we did need to suit up, and the fire department was there with us half the day there working on that. The state has told us that their PPEs are probably, once these are exhausted, they're not sure where they're getting them from. We've had people making masks for the officers to wear, cloth masks, and donating them. We had a business in town donate some hand sanitizer to us that we've been using. Hopefully, as we come out of this, that we will be able to purchase, procure some more of that for the second wave. We've been working with the agencies around us, with the sheriffs, with Moss State Police, with Walpole, through the COVID issues and just our day-to-day work. They have been over here. We had a tragic incident last week that I'm sure we're all aware of. Walpole was here to assist us. Sheriff's Department was here. State Police came in and assisted us. And we were very thankful and glad about that. We've done with the fire department, I think we've done 6 birthday parades for some juveniles that couldn't have their own birthdays. And they appear to be thoroughly excited by seeing the fire trucks and the police cars coming by with the blue lights on and red lights. We, like I said, we're planning for the second wave, and hopefully severity and the scope when it hits and where it hits, we'll be ready for it and prepared. So. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions? Jakes, Jonathan, any questions?
Have I seen some foot patrols?
Yes, we've been doing quite a bit of foot patrols.
I just wanted to compliment you on that. Not that I'm out much, but I have seen officers walking, and I thought that was very positive.
All right, thank you.
Jonathan?
I was going to ask a very similar question to that, because I've noticed over the last 4 weeks that we've seen a great amount of foot patrols, not only in our neighborhood, but in just different neighborhoods around. And I'm loving seeing that as well. Not only do I think it allows the community to see our police department, but I actually see the officers walking, and they tend to have smiles on their face, and they're looking around and they're engaging with people. So that's a compliment as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to the next item then, unless you have anything, you gentlemen have anything?
I'm okay right now.
All right, and that's to discuss the plan to resume or reopen, I guess it's resume, yeah, as it was just on hold, chief search, the police chief search committee process. There were already people on the committee. I believe, my recommendation, and that's, whatever you want to do, I think we need to put it out there and run the ad for a couple of weeks, just to see if there's anyone else, to make sure that the committee, which I believe is constituted by Jiggs, Gary, Trevor Whipple, and Tracy Schreiber, unless they're not available.
And the 3 local.
Oh, yes, and Paul Bohosky,
Heather Warriors and
Warriors,
Mike Mill.
and Mike Mao, that's right, I forgot about those 3 as well. Trying to see if there's a way to coordinate, but with a couple weeks of advertising, it gives them time to find a day that they can Zoom a meeting.
Yeah, if I could suggest, I would have the committee get together first and just like with Chuck and
go from there.
kind of reform and just touch base and then advertise. Have them look at the ad again, because it is challenging to advertise just during COVID. It's hard.
Yeah.
And Trevor might have some recommendations for that.
So that's on you.
Thank you. I'm typing notes. Thank you.
Okay, so that moved from there. Any other trustee have any objections to reopening the search committee? I think we need to move forward.
Just a comment.
No, I think Wendy's suggestion.
Wait, hold on, wait a second, James.
Okay.
Can't hear you.
A couple of weeks in there where we have any applicants that may want to apply. Okay. Thanks.
Gary, did you have anything?
No, I'm before opening it back up.
All right, James.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think Wendy's suggestion is a good one. I think we should get the committee back together and talk about when we should fire it back up.
Jonathan, did you have anything?
No, I'm all set. I agree. We should start looking again.
Awesome. Okay, and that's what'll happen. Thank you, gentlemen. Next item on the agenda is the personnel rules amendments, which we just got today from Wendy, or actually was already after this one. The one that's in our packet is not the most recent
Right,
version.
shoot,
You emailed that.
Right. Well, we had a meeting this morning. Jigs can comment on it. So there have been amendments made to the proposed rules
Since this one.
And the purpose of having it on this agenda was to see if those of you who are not involved as much as Jigs is, have any questions.
Jigs, did you have anything on this? The one we have in our packet is not the one you guys have today.
It's 98% the final or the almost final package. We did meet with the Personnel Rules Committee today and went over their comments and concerns. Wendy and I made some edits this afternoon, and the document that she has tonight, I believe, is kind of our final version. We're going to send that out to everybody to look at, and then hopefully at our next meeting, have it on the ballot to vote. The reason it's on tonight was to give the board an opportunity to, probably more for my benefit than anybody else's, in looking at the draft that you had in the packet, if there were any issues that you wanted to raise, I'd be anxious to hear them. But I think we're close to the end on this, which is important because our first session with the police union is next Tuesday.
Okay, feedback from you guys. Steph? No, not surprised. And we'll be seeing, did you email this afternoon or will you be?
I did email this afternoon, but I also made you copies, but unfortunately they're upstairs.
Well, there'll probably not be any other, they'll just get out to us for next meeting.
Sure, and I can get you, I mean, they aren't major.
There weren't major changes, were there? Anyway.
I mean, it depends on who you talk to in terms of, but there was one paragraph that changed significantly. I mean, I can explain it to you if you want. It was the one on the conversion of vacation to payment. It was in the version that you have, it was deleted entirely. In response to the conversation with the personnel committee this morning, it was put back in and limited to 1 time per year per person, and made explicit that it was manager approval and that there's no appeal. Do you want to add anything to that, Jigs? I mean, that was the major difference.
Right, and that clearly it had to be a special extraordinary item. So yes, we did put it back in.
Special extraordinary items, you mean circumstance or?
Circumstance, yes.
Okay.
Is it, I mean, we had a lengthy discussion about this on why we were removing it. And I was under the impression that Wendy was in favor of removing this from the personnel rules.
Right.
Well, I had an in-between position, which would be to limit it to a certain number of hours and once a year, but I did think it should be restricted and made more rigorous than it is currently. But I mean, both boards need to approve these, so you'll have another shot at it.
Yeah. Gary, did you have anything?
No.
Okay, well, and we'll get the updated version, which includes our email, so. And
Yeah, I got my email, but there's a bunch of stuff that in the email that overlaps the sentence.
Uh-oh.
And so I really couldn't.
Yeah, the view is on, it has all the changes. Yeah, you have to change it to don't show the changes view. Yeah, I talked to Rob about that.
So is it still okay when you look at it, that don't show the changes?
Oh, yeah, it's
still
the
correct.
result, it's just super confusing to read when you have all the changes, because there's been probably 1,000 changes.
Back and forth, yeah.
Yeah.
It really
Okay, so-
needs to be,
Yes, James?
it really needs to be retyped in a consistent manner, no gaps and things like that. So now's the time to do that. We just need to have a clerical person that can do that for us.
On that end, I can simply say that as someone who's been on the ordinance committee for like 2 years, every time I have to go in and make recommendation changes from the committee on any ordinance, it's always the same problem, formatting. So you print it, it's got 2 gap of pages or this much text on a whole page.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It's insane. So, anything else? Jonathan, do you have something else? It looked like you wanted to talk.
No, I'm all set.
All right, then we would move on to the introduction and discussion of the new village website, which is already live.
Yes, so Shannon's going to do a shared screen so that you can see the website. Hopefully you guys have gone to it.
Well,
Now
I'm here all the
actually,
time.
yeah, let me say the old website is still there.
It's
So
rockbf.org legacy, is it legacy?
it's legacy /, I think, rockbf.org.
Yeah.
And there's a link to it on the front page of the new, so this is the front page of the new website. Shannon, if you could scroll down just a bit. Well, yeah, see stop there,
There's the
please,
legacy, okay.
where it has the legacy. It's right at the top of the screen there. So it's right on the front page, on the home page. The website is just super important. It's our communication to the world. I mean, it has to be good. It's not perfect yet. It'll probably never be perfect. We previewed this at town meeting in March, and one thing that people really liked, can you go up to the top now, Shannon, please? Is the meetings bar. There's a bar at the top, the red. So it says click here for next meetings, because what people go to the site for frequently is to see when the next meeting is and what's on the agenda. So here's your meeting today. And so it has the Zoom number, and then it'll also have the agenda on it, so people can easily see it. We do need to find a better way to put the packets on the meeting, on the website also, because some of the packets are just too large, but they get a lot of
Like over
photographs.
100 something pages, yeah.
Yeah, it's not so much the page, but when there's a lot of photographs.
Okay,
But
yeah.
so that's something that we need to figure out how to do. This last packet did fit.
Maybe there's another side place where.
Well,
you can
that's
click
one thing
click the
we're-
link and go get it from there.
We're gonna use the legacy site to store documents, because that site has a lot more capacity. It's just terrible to work with. The new site is much easier to work with, so when we have staff, more people will be able to update it more easily. Let me just point out a couple of things. Shannon, if you could go to departments, please, so those tabs. What our current website is a little confusing because it has Rockingham departments in one section and village departments in another section. And if you're from here and understand, you know which place to go to. But for people who are not from here or recently moved here, we put all the departments on one in one list. It does say which are Rockingham and which are Bellows Falls, so that is clear. But it didn't seem right to expect everyone to know which is which before they even get into the site. And some of the departments did not even have any page at all previously. So I just think it's important that all the departments be included on this. So what else? The homepage you saw in the current site, the homepage has more history on it. We put history in a separate space because the homepage is supposed to have current information, because that's what you hit first. So we want that to be new and fresh. That's where we're putting COVID information. That's where we have information on which businesses are open now. That's up there, how people can help. The village meeting and elections, since that's an unusual thing, that has its own tab now. It won't after the elections.
Right.
You won't need that. That won't. But it can be the next big thing.
So
after
the
that.
information that's there, for instance, I'm assuming that's also where you put the sample ballot and so on and so forth.
Sure.
Typically, that would turn up under the clerk's office.
We can have things on multiple pages. That's what we're doing on permits. Exactly. So that's a great, so that, we probably have that on the homepage.
Right.
And then we'd also have it under village meeting and elections, and we'd also have it on the clerk page. And you don't need to make 3 different versions. You just have one version and it
Tell where to
points.
go.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's another good thing about this site. Like public notices, we might have it under public notices too. Right now that's bids.
That's under public notices page?
No. Is that?
It must
Oh,
be,
actually,
yeah,
okay, yeah.
It is.
Yeah, I was looking at the bids and RFPs earlier. So,
Because I went to the town and I went to the village and I couldn't find the nuisance ordinance, which should be under that municipalities, with their other ordinances. Now I see you've got other town ordinances are all under legacy for both village and town.
yes, and I think that was maybe in response to your concern.
Yeah. To be able to
Right,
get
there's
access.
just so much. It's really like an encyclopedia. I mean, what we have on the current website is a ton of information, and there's a ton of other things that would be great to include.
And it was not always easy to find, so I would have people call me at home or at my office and say, hey, I'm trying to find blah, blah, blah. Okay, I said, well, okay, walk with me and we go through the steps to get to
Right.
what they're looking for.
I
Right.
think all of the permits are not over there yet though. Cause I still have to go to the rockbf.org to find that vendor.
Right, okay.
Okay.
There are, yeah, and the goal under permits, Shannon, can you go under permits, please? The permits and applications? The employment is one, and then the next one, the permits one. Permits have been under the department that issues them. So like if someone's wants a parking permit, they don't necessarily know that the manager's department issues that.
Right, yeah.
So it made sense, I thought, to have all of the permits in one place. So someday these will be either alphabetized or organized by whatever people go to the most. What we can do is put analytics on this, so we know
Frequency,
where people go. And I would suggest that whatever they do the most be the at the top. So parking permits are coming up, and then building and construction permits are here, and then they're also on the planning and zoning page. And again, if they're updated on planning and zoning page, they get updated here, because they both point to the same document. So it's definitely a work in progress, but play around with it, go to different places. We have a get to know us. Shannon, would you mind going to the get to know us part? So obviously we don't want to encourage people to come here right now with COVID, but once everything opens up again, we have how do you get here? And then we'll promote businesses through here. So we're telling people not, don't come here now, but when you're ready to travel, this would be a good place. We're telling them how to get here. We don't have yet your individual photos, because it was actually really hard to do the individual. Right now they're group photos, but don't be alarmed.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Get the individual photos. We want to do a lot more photos.
Oh, the website, the website address. Right now, it's currently
Oh, yeah.
RockinghamVT.org.
Yeah, yes, what I had hoped to have done by now, but I have not. And so I think we should just take a step back, and you guys can decide in the future if you want to do it or not. A .gov address is like the gold standard for government. There aren't that many in Vermont that have it, but it shows that you're the actual government. Because there have been places who have pretended to, there's been fake sites that have pretended to be government sites. So in order to get a .gov, you have to register with the federal government, and it does cost money. It costs $400 a year. I started that process, but I've stopped that process. We have not paid the $400 a year. But they're very strict about how you do the address. So it has to be a town name and then the 2-letter state name. We could have Rockingham VT and Bellows Falls VT both point to the same site. that would not be a problem. But again, it's a pretty long process. We're partway through. It doesn't make sense for me to hand that off to Chuck because he's gonna have plenty of other things to do. So if you want to in the future, you can do that. So in the interim, what we did was rockinghamvt.org as a way to get people used to that name. We can't go back to rockbf.org because we're using the legacy site. So it does need to be another name. We could possibly rockbf.com, if that's available. I don't know. But so the name is something that still needs to be worked on. So, but for now it's functioning. I just think you guys should not worry about the .gov because you have plenty of other things to do.
Any feedback?
And no one else is gonna take it. That's the good thing about it, is no other place, you have to prove that.
That isn't that, yeah.
Right, because I do get a certified and letter and be at the phone when they called, and there's a lot of steps, checking that has to be done, so you don't need to worry about it.
So Gary, Steph, do you have any comments? Jigs, Jonathan, any comments on the new website?
I think it looks good.
Okay, I'm sorry, Jonathan, could you repeat what you said?
I said, no, I'm all set.
Okay, all right, thank you, Wendy.
Sure.
For all that. Thank you, Shannon, for moving around with that. That would take us off to reviewing fire department and police department call logs. Did I see those? There was just something else. Yeah, okay, there they are, yeah. Any comments on the call logs? I hear nothing. Okay, do we want to move on to agenda items for the next regular trustees meeting, June 9?
Approve the personnel rules.
We're not approving them tonight.
No, for the next meeting.
Next time. Oh, I'm sorry. What am I thinking? Yes, next meeting, the personnel rules.
And then that Cold Spring name, that you got an email, I think, from Peter Bergeron.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the town approved the renaming, but because Cold Springs are to be, the place that will be known as Cold Springs will be on the village's
Village property,
agenda.
it'll be another agenda item.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? Again, of course, we'll have the regular year-to-date financials over time. And any last minute things that come up as you're preparing for the meeting, if anything happens, you can let us know about complications or whatever that might change how that people, so another opportunity to let people know what we're doing and how we're doing.
Yeah.
And you can also have a meeting on the 4th Tuesday if you want, that's still available.
Right, that's true. If something comes up that we ask. And then we can consider what we're gonna do with the organizational meeting, which will be, what would that be? Ooh, well, maybe on the 9th of June, we wanna change that prior to the election, because if we want to have 2 meetings, an organizational meeting before July, we'll need to do that in June. Agenda items for the next joint board meeting is June 30th. Is there anything that we have on the list already? Personnel
Only the
rules will probably come up
rules,
again.
But you'll probably do it before that.
Yeah. Probably, just in case it's still there. All right, approve orders, bills, and warrants.
Motion to approve orders, bills, and warrants.
I'll second that.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And John. Sorry.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, so those are approved. Other business. Wendy.
I just have one thing, the PK's permit, I didn't hear any objections, so.
Oh, in the email?
Yeah, so I'm gonna, approve it tomorrow. To have the food truck. Do you guys remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
The only question I had is,
Jamaican Jules.
is that open-ended indefinite, or how is that?
It's to the end of COVID, but I
It's
could.
one
we
day,
could
one
put
day a week.
Yeah, it's Friday, it's just Fridays, to the end of, actually, it's not to the end of COVID, I'm sorry, it's to the end of when businesses are closed.
So when they reopen restaurants, they'll go back to.
Right.
Any concerns?
How do you
on
get a
that?
drink to go?
Yeah,
I know, I asked that too.
How do you get a drink to go?
he is.
They can't give you a straw. I don't know if the chief is here. No, you know what? They tape it.
It's called a sippy cup, Jigs.
Okay, all right.
Done before, and I don't think there were any issues with sticking out beyond that. Were there any problems before?
No, but Chuck had a suggestion, I think, after talking to the chief about having, a condition that I'm gonna put on there that says if there are issues that the police can, make changes.
Yeah.
No problem.
Okay, so just so hopefully that won't be the case again, because it'll be every Friday unless it's a problem. Right, and I'm assuming that the window side is in the sidewalk side.
Right, right.
Right.
Yeah, the idea is, because the PK's has to sell food in order to get, to sell drinks. And the food from the food truck counts to some extent
As the food,
as the
yeah.
food, but PK's will still have food also.
Yeah. They treat it like a pop-up, I guess, a pop-up restaurant. Okay, and, let's see, let's see. Stefan, do you have anything else?
No.
Gary?
No, I'm good.
Jakes, do you have anything else? Other
I
business?
I just want to wish Wendy the very best. Sorry this didn't work out, but think highly of you and as I said, wish you the very best.
Thank you, and you too, Village too.
Jonathan? Anything else?
I'm all set. Nope, I'm all set here. Thank you.
Yes, I too would like to thank Wendy for her 2 years of service and moving some of our projects forward. And best of luck in what you do next. And, yes, I'm sorry.
Too early to announce the moving of Alumni Weekend. Maybe you could.
Oh, yeah.
That's, I'm sorry, that's
the date.
I suggested that they come to the boards in June. Which,
Okay.
yeah, you
But
can announce it.
They
Yeah.
made the announcement, and so September 25th, Alumni Weekend has been changed to September 25th and 27th, is that correct?
I don't remember the date.
That's what I saw in the
Yes.
email.
Okay.
And the reason I know that is because usually the annual event I go to happens the same weekend. I believe that's what they said, and they'll be coming in June.
Yes, that's the other thing for the joint board.
Okay, so alumni will show up alumni group will show up June 30th?
Yes,
2020.
or that's what I suggested to them.
Okay.
I don't know if that fits their schedule, so they may come earlier,
Well, they
but
have some permit requests, don't they usually?
It's
yeah,
already been approved, we just need to amend the date.
Amend the date.
so
Okay.
But
it
that's
seems,
just
Right.
more announcing to anyone watching at home
Right,
who
so-
hasn't heard.
If they don't come on June 30th, then we will make another announcement. That's another thing to add to the joint board in case they don't.
oh, yeah, I would think, if anything, they would wanna come sooner rather than later,
Okay.
so,
And they're welcome to show up
yeah.
at any meeting. So does anyone else have any other business? I guess not.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Okay, need a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, it's unanimous. We are adjourned. Thank you, folks, for tuning in.
Jack,